Details of El Chapo's crazy Supermax prison you've probably never heard of.
Rob, this is an uphill battle for El Chapo, but the man nicknamed Shorty tonight is in a do-or-die situation.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to be in the prison cell of the notorious drug lord El Chapo? What kind of conditions does he have to endure? What is the extreme security like in the Florence Supermax, the prison he currently resides in? Today's video will explore the details of El Chapo's life in a Supermax prison and beyond. What secrets lie within the walls of the prison that no one knows about? Well, let's get going. Joaquin Guzman, also known as El Chapo, was a feared cartel kingpin who controlled half of the Mexican narcotics trade and brought in $3 billion annually at the peak of his career. He owned extravagant possessions such as yachts, Learjets, a diamond-encrusted pistol, and a private zoo with exotic animals. Despite his success in business, he climbed the cartel pyramids through ruthless tactics of killing, maiming, and bribing. After multiple arrests, he was sent to maximum security prison in the US for which no one has ever escaped. This article will detail El Chapo's life in a Supermax prison and beyond. El Chapo became a notorious criminal after entering the narcotics trade at a young age and progressing under the leadership of El Padrino, the godfather of all modern cartels. After El Padrino's arrest in 1989, El Chapo saw an opportunity to grow his own Sinaloa cartel and become the new leader of Mexican trafficking. He was arrested and sentenced to 20 years in prison in 1993, but escaped in 2001 by bribing officials. He was arrested again in 2014, but escaped again by building an underground tunnel. However, in 2016, he was finally arrested and taken to the US to face his crimes. El Chapo, the infamous drug lord, was found guilty in 2019 of several criminal charges related to his kingpin status. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in ADX Florence, Colorado, where he now shares a prison cell with high-profile and dangerous inmates such as the Unabomber and the Oklahoma City bomber. El Chapo and his fellow inmates spend 23 hours a day in a soundproof cell with their only spare hour thoroughly supervised. They are cuffed and shackled, and their torsos are chained, making it impossible for them to run or jump. The only technology available to them is a small black and white TV set, which is provided only if they demonstrate good behavior. The high-security prison ADX Florence was built for dangerous, escape-prone inmates and only holds a small number of about 375 prisoners. The prison's intense security includes gun towers, razor wire fences, and numerous guards. However, ADX Florence's controversial prison conditions have caused significant discussion. The warden stated that the assumption would be for a free person, it's pretty close to what hell would be like. El Chapo and other prisoners at ADX Florence are unlikely to escape, but the harsh living conditions remain a subject of debate. Inmates of the Florence Supermax are confined for 23 hours a day, which violates basic human rights according to the United Nations. The conditions are said to be worse than torture. A third of the inmates have severe mental illnesses, but prolonged solitary confinement could lead to additional mental health issues for the other two-thirds. A lawsuit filed against ADX in 2012 alleged that years of isolation had severely impacted the social skills and adaptability of inmates. With only a 4-inch window to the outside world, inmates have no knowledge of their location. Reports show that inmates have gone mad, screaming for hours or hurting themselves, with some mutilating their bodies using whatever objects they can find. One inmate even bit off both of his pinky fingers during a panic episode. It's unclear whether this would have happened in another prison or the outside world, or if the extreme isolation of ADX was the cause. ADX Florence, a Supermax prison, houses some of the world's most dangerous criminals, including the 1993 World Trade Center bomber Ramzi Youssef and the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski. However, not all the inmates are the worst of the worst. Some have been transferred due to disciplinary issues. Regardless, every inmate sleeps and spends most of their day alone in a 7-by-12-foot cell. There's a shower, but it only turns on automatically 3 times a week. There have also been cases of inmates taking their own lives in gruesome ways, such as by swallowing dangerous objects. The Florence Supermax is designed to prevent any escape or weapon making. Inmates sleep on concrete slabs with a thin mattress and a blanket. Furniture and toilets are all made of concrete. Meals are delivered straight to their cells through small double sliding doors. And they eat alone without communication with other inmates. Inmates have limited access to communication, with only 15-minute phone calls per month. But they can borrow books and magazines from the library. Visits are allowed up to 5 times a month, but are heavily supervised and must be justified. Comfort is not a priority at Florence Supermax. Solitary confinement is a punishment used for a short-term period of time in most prisons. However, in Florence Supermax, it is standard practice. Former warden Robert Hood described the eerie feeling of the ADX, stating it is a far harsher environment than any other prison. Prisoners spend the first 3 years without contact with any other inmates, and their 1 hour of free time is spent alone. After 3 years, they may talk to other prisoners during their spare hours, and in their last year, they get 4 spare hours each day. El Chapo will remain in Florence Supermax for life, making interaction with others impossible. El Chapo has been held at the ADX Florence since 2019, and his wife Emma is making efforts to secure more compassionate treatment for him. He is currently confined to Range 13, which houses the facility's most hazardous offenders, and has no personal contact except for brief interactions with prison staff. Additionally, due to his previous prison escape attempts, he is not allowed to use a conventional shower and instead is cleansed using a hose. El Chapo's lawyer has appealed his prison sentence, citing the negative impact of a 27-month period of limited sunlight and fresh air on his client's mental health. The prolonged and unwanted punishment has led to a range of distressing symptoms for El Chapo. It's up to you to determine whether or not El Chapo's punishment is deserved. Despite his willingness to kill countless individuals for personal gain, the question remains as to what the appropriate consequence should be. Should even the most heinous offenders be subjected to inhumane conditions? Emma and El Chapo's legal team argue that the constant presence of bright lights and loud air conditioning, as well as the constant chatter of the guards, is preventing him from getting sufficient rest. Additionally, Emma is concerned about his dangerously high blood pressure and fears for his safety at the Florence Supermax. Following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, El Chapo was prevented from meeting with his family or legal representatives for an extended period. The extent of his communication with the outside world remains uncertain. Despite his efforts to evade the severe conditions of ADX Florence, he cannot escape incarceration unless his appeal is successful. Consequently, he will spend the remainder of his life in the US's most secure penitentiary. Is El Chapo receiving appropriate treatment? According to the DEA Special Agent Ray Donovan, he deserves it for his involvement in countless acts of violence and death. The Sinaloa cartel under his leadership was responsible for the deaths of thousands of people. While being confined to a cell may be boring, monotonous, and sad, he is still alive and capable of doing things, unlike the many victims he caused harm to. Thank you for watching our video exploring the life of El Chapo in a Supermax prison. We hope you enjoyed learning about the conditions and controversies surrounding ADX Florence and the life of its high-profile inmates. What do you think about the practice of prolonged solitary confinement? Let us know in the comments below. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more informative videos here at Criminal Records, and we'll see you in the next video.